Hi everyone! Sometimes the most unsettling mysteries don't happen in abandoned places or distant wilderness, but in buildings people walk past every day without a second thought. One ordinary apartment block in Canada became the center of a quiet argument that slowly turned into something far more disturbing. This video is meant to help you slow down, relax, and gently drift into a strange and uneasy mystery that unfolds piece by piece. Michael Carter had lived in a plain apartment block on the outskirts of Edmonton for most of his adult life, and rarely thought about the building as anything more than a point between his office and the subway line. In his mind, everything was simple and fixed. Third entrance, fourth floor, the familiar rattle of the elevator. The building had stood there since at least the late 1980s. His parents had moved in when Michael was a child, and in all those years he had never questioned one basic fact. The building had 5 entrances. One evening, a strange argument broke out in the residents' group chat. One group of neighbors insisted there were 5 entrances. Another group, just as confidently, claimed there were 6. People started posting old courtyard photos, screenshots from navigation apps, scanned utility documents. The diagrams never fully matched. Someone even uploaded a faded photograph of a baby stroller parked in front of what they called the 6th entrance, a place Michael had never heard mentioned before. He scrolled through the messages skeptically, but out of curiosity opened an old photo from 2012, taken the day he bought his first car. When he zoomed in on the background, he froze. The facade showed 6 entrances, 6 doors, 6 overhangs. Michael sat in his kitchen staring at the screen, suddenly realizing he could not remember where that 6th entrance was supposed to be. That evening, he went outside, walked along the building, counting the doors. His feet confidently counted 5. Yet his memory insisted there had once been another, somewhere between them. A few days later, Michael visited the local registry office to handle paperwork for a bank loan. The property extract was clear. Number of entrances, 5. His apartment was listed as Entrance 3, Floor 4. Everything looked normal. The clerk barely glanced up, muttering something about a standard panel building, nothing unusual. A week later, he needed an extended cadastral record and returned to the same office. This time, the document stated, number of entrances, 6. His apartment had shifted to Entrance 4, Floor 4. The stamp and signature were fresh, dated that very day. There was no mention of renumbering or renovation. When Michael asked about the discrepancy, the clerk shrugged and said, "Databases glitch sometimes. I wouldn't worry about it." He asked to see the building layout on the screen. The monitor showed a 6-entrance building. Then, as the page refreshed, the image flickered and briefly collapsed into 5 sections before snapping back to 6. The clerk frowned, closed the window, and blamed server issues. On the way home, Michael remembered an old technical passport stored at his parents' place. In the faded gray booklet, printed decades ago, it read, Entrance 2 of 5, even though a metal plaque on his door had long said 3. For the first time in years, he felt unsure about the place he lived. That night, unable to sleep, Michael went outside with his phone and a small flashlight. He walked slowly along the facade, counting aloud, as if checking his own sanity. 1, 2, 3, familiar doors, chipped paint, worn intercoms. 4th entrance with a cracked window. 5th. And then, under the beam of the flashlight, another section emerged. A narrow fragment of the facade with a strange metal surface where a normal door should have been. The door had no handle, no intercom, no signage. The metal was smooth and matte, swallowing the light instead of reflecting it. Michael took several photos, trying to capture the entire line of the building with that impossible entrance included. His heart was pounding, though he could not yet say what scared him more, the door itself, or the fear that by morning he would have no proof it had ever been there. The next day, he returned in daylight. In the same spot stood an ordinary entrance door, brown paint peeling, a functional intercom, fingerprints smudged around the buttons. An elderly woman stepped out with grocery bags and snapped at his question. "What do you mean appeared? This entrance has always been here." On his phone, the photo now showed a completely normal door. Michael stood there scrolling through his gallery, feeling his memory slip. A few days later, he went to the city archives, hoping old plans would offer clarity. In one folder, he found a typewritten blueprint from the late 1980s, a rectangular building neatly divided into 5 entrances. In another folder lay an almost identical plan, dated the same year, but showing 6 entrances. The notes claimed no structural changes had ever been made. An archive employee casually suggested these were draft variations or counting errors. But Michael could see the stamps and signatures were genuine, the dates only months apart. He photographed both plans. On one image, the building had 5 sections, on the other 6. Flipping between the photos, the lines seemed to subtly rearrange themselves, as if the building could not decide what shape it had. One of the images suddenly failed to open. The phone displayed a gray screen with the message, "Unable to load image." Michael was certain that moments earlier, this exact photo had clearly shown the additional entrance. That evening, at home, he tried drawing the building from memory. In the morning, he found 2 different sketches on his desk. One ended neatly at 5 entrances. The other extended with an extra section. Both felt equally familiar. One afternoon, Michael ran into Anna Lewis in the stairwell, a thin woman in her mid-30s who lived in the far section. As soon as he mentioned the chat argument, she admitted she had been keeping a folder on her computer for years, collecting the building's inconsistencies, utility bills, old photos, scanned records. In one of her wedding photos, the building behind the guests clearly had 6 entrances. In the printed version her parents kept, the same building stopped after the 5th. Anna also spoke about a woman who used to live in the 6th entrance. She was meticulous, always stating her address as Entrance 6, 4th floor, on every form. Years ago, she disappeared. People said she might have moved away, but her belongings were never found. Soon, her apartment was reassigned to a man who listed a different entrance number. Gradually, neighbors began insisting there had never been a 6th entrance at all, dismissing Anna's memories as confusion. Michael and Anna decided to walk the building together, counting floors and doors carefully. On one level, between 2 familiar apartments, they found a short corridor no one remembered. At its end stood another metal door, no handle, no lock, not even a visible seam. Michael knocked. The sound was dull, as if striking something dense and yielding. They took a photo. At home, opening it on a laptop, they saw only a blank wall with a fire hose cabinet and an old elevator repair notice. Anna quietly said it sometimes felt as though the building decided each night how many entrances it had and who belonged inside. The story began spreading. First in the building chat, then on a local forum, then in a short video by a neighborhood blogger who walked the facade arguing with residents about the number of entrances. Weeks later, the property management company announced that a federal review team would visit to resolve documentation discrepancies. On the morning of their arrival, someone posted a satellite map screenshot. For several minutes, the building's location appeared as an empty lot with faint foundation lines. The land registry briefly listed the plot as undeveloped, marked for future construction, before reverting to its normal residential status. Screenshots circulated quickly, filling the chat with terse, anxious messages. When the review team arrived, the building stood as usual. Yet the outer sections seemed subtly skewed, as if the walls leaned toward something unseen. The inspector's tablets alternated between showing the building and displaying a blank gray shape. One of them, a man with glasses, said he wanted to personally inspect the disputed entrance. He walked along the facade and turned the corner. Michael and Anna watched from the courtyard. He did not open a door. He simply vanished. The inspector following him stopped abruptly. Beyond the corner was only a solid concrete wall. No door, no sound. A search followed. Basements, rooftops, neighboring yards. The man was never found. Later, residents were told he had returned to Ottawa for personal reasons. No one saw him leave. After that, the building seemed to settle. Official records finalized the version with 5 entrances. Maps lost any trace of a 6th section. The management website posted a notice about address normalization and upcoming renovations. On paper, everything was orderly again. Michael and Anna kept their copies. Months later, some files opened with blank white areas where the disputed entrance should have been, as if something had been erased, not only from registries, but from digital memory itself. Backup restorations failed. Archive folders mysteriously updated their modification dates to the day the inspectors visited. Eventually, Michael moved to another district, hoping distance would help. One day, filling out a bank form, an autocomplete suggestion appeared. His old address, followed by entrance 3 of 6. All official systems showed 5, yet the suggestion persisted. He erased it and typed the address manually, realizing he could no longer say with certainty which entrance he used to come home through. Months later, passing his old neighborhood by bus, he glimpsed the familiar facade through the fogged glass. For a brief moment, the far section seemed to drift sideways, dissolving into empty space, its windows facing something dark and flat. He blinked, and the building was ordinary again. The bus moved on. What stayed with him was a quiet, unsettling thought. Perhaps the building had always decided for itself how many entrances it had, and which people counted as residents. Everyone else might simply be visitors from another version of the same place, who would one day find that certain doors no longer opened for them.